across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh my God, there you are. Good afternoon and welcome to Drive Time right here on Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be your host for 3 powerhouse hours of news, views and topical debate all the way to 7 o'clock. Get on the show, get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. It is Thursday, August the 6th. Here's what's coming up. How else would the preposterous professor sign off amid his litany of ludicrous lies, but with a resignation letter apparently written by AI? Yes, Jason Arday quit the moment the academically brilliant idiots at Cambridge University finally realised they had a wrong 'un on their hands and announced a full investigation into his fantastical claims. Make of that what you will. Of course, he insisted he didn't resign as Cambridge's right-on poster boy because his hilarious fibs might be exposed, but to escape the unrelenting pressure of the limelight. Yeah, right. This, folks, is what happens when the woke mind virus sends people mad. The terribly clever dons didn't spot Arday's laughable falsehoods because they didn't want to. They were desperate for the kudos of boasting about the fabled university's youngest ever black professor. Pathetic, isn't it? 0344 499 1000. Meanwhile, Met Police Chief Mark Rowley apologises for launching a criminal harassment investigation into the Times Higher Education Supplement reporter who first exposed the alleged plagiarism in Arday's PhD, his doctorate. Well, he might. What the hell were the cops thinking, probing a journalist for just doing his job? 0344 499 1000. In other news, a clear attack on the British way of life as a London council is set to ban pub-goers from buying drinks at the bar and bring in total waiter service. Waiter service only. Worse still, Westminster's town hall tyrants also want to outlaw what they call vertical drinking, as in standing in the boozer enjoying a pint. How outrageous is this? They want to make it illegal to stand in a pub and enjoy a pint or a glass of wine or whatever your favourite tipple is. And, you know, going to the bar to buy your drink, again, it's part of British life. Don't ban that. What the hell is going on? 0344 499 1000. Also, on today's action-packed show, furious locals protest over plans to build a 13-storey mega mosque towering over a neighbouring Christian church. In the Queen's Park area of London, there are 15 mosques within a 3-mile radius. Why do they need another one? Is this massive new mosque a sign of the increasing Islamification of Britain? 0344 499 1000. Plus, left-wing councils vow to ignore new guidance on single-sex spaces, and grooming gang members who sexually abused girls may be freed under the early release scheme. Finally, I'll be talking to our royal guru, Kinsey Schofield, about all the latest goings-on Planet Meghan. It's been her 46th birthday, and what a sickening song and dance she made about that. I mean, who goes mad for their 46th birthday? She's 46, not 6. Pictures of her gyrating around with balloons, diving into swimming pools with balloons. Birthday, birthday, birthday. You're 46. Grow up. That at the end of the show. We'll talk to Kinsey around about 6:20. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere, stick with me. But right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Thursday afternoon together. Let's go over to my first guest to go through some of the big stories of the day. He is former MEP, Brexiteer, chairman of the Great British PAC, Ben Habib. Welcome, Ben.
Good afternoon, Kevin. Good to see you.
Good to have you on the show. I don't want to go too much into detail on Jason Arday because we're going to be covering this story extensively throughout the show. But your brief thoughts about what's going on here. I think what we've got here is the celebrated youngest black professor at Cambridge, 39 years old, Jason Arday, who clearly told an absolute fantastical pack of lies, and the woke mind virus has infected the brilliant academic dons at that university. I don't think it's a case that they believed him. It's a case of them wanting to believe him for the kudos of having this brilliant young black professor. It's all gone badly wrong. This is an absolute shambles, isn't it?
It's a perfect example of progressive discrimination, setting aside meritocracy and undermining common sense. This man clearly wasn't the capable individual that he claimed to be. Plagiarism should be something that even the most basic of his colleagues should have been able to spot. This guy was what he was, which was someone who shouldn't have ever been in that post in the first place, what he's now been revealed to be. But as you say, they didn't want to believe it because he was black, he was young, he fitted the mold that Cambridge University wears proudly of being progressively in favor of promoting ethnic minorities, people of minority religious beliefs, sexual preferences, and all the rest of it. The more of that they can have, the better they feel about themselves. And of course, the worse academia becomes, at what used to be, at least, one of the preeminent universities in the world, along with Oxford, which has also fallen. And we've got many, many examples of Oxford Union now actually not supporting free speech because it wants to progress these ideologies over and ahead and above and to the detriment, material detriment of proper thought and debate. And Arday is just the latest example, I think.
It's just pathetic. It's pathetic. As I say, folks, we will rejoin this story after I've spoken to Ben about a few other issues, the main one of which I want to get your take on, Ben, this accursed early prison release scheme now appears to be set to encompass rape gang members. Isn't that special? So rape gang members who sexually abused teenage girls could be freed under Labour's early release scheme, and that is has quite rightly been condemned as another betrayal of the victims of that rape gang scandal. Now, I should point out that the Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, has very kindly agreed to interrupt his thoroughly well-deserved holiday after 15 hard-working days as our supreme leader. He has let it be known that he will have a look at this and review it, but we know what happened the last time he promised to review the prison early release scheme in terms of PC Harper's killers. He reviewed them and then said nothing will change, they'll still be let out. So one can assume, despite the fact the Prime Minister is reviewing whether or not rape gang members can be early released, they almost certainly will be. Isn't that special?
So what I find particularly interesting about this story is that in order to justify releasing these people early, the government has basically cited the fact these crimes were committed before grooming of children was defined as a crime. So they're only committed to imprisonment under indecent assault. Now, as if that somehow justifies their early release. If you've been put in prison for indecent assault, frankly, it's splitting hairs whether you groomed the child you indecently assaulted or whether or not you simply indecently assaulted them. No individual in prison who's there for what I regard to be the worst crime possible, which is the sexual assaulting of children. I mean,
yeah.
Paedophilia is the worst possible crime in my mind. And they are releasing these people and justifying it on technicalities like indecent assault was the charge for which they were imprisoned and not grooming, which came later. Of course, they groomed these children. We know that they groomed these children, but because there wasn't a legal definition at the time, they're now justifying their early release. The reality is, Kevin, as we've discussed many times, our criminal justice system is broken. It's failing. We've got a two-tier criminal justice system, policing tweets, and I think you talked about Arday being investigated by the police. Why weren't the police doing something more valuable?
No, it's worse than that, Ben. It wasn't Arday being investigated.
It was the
journalist investigating Arday was investigated by the police for criminal harassment. The Scotland Yard has apologised for that, saying, well, we dropped the ball on that one. But why on earth did coppers ever think that it was their job to investigate a journalist for asking questions? That's what we do, folks. That's not against the law.
It was the journalists that they were investigating. I got that wrong, but the point stands. And it wasn't that they dropped the ball; they picked up deliberately. They picked up the wrong ball, and they're repeatedly doing it, aren't they? And so we've got a criminal justice system that, frankly, doesn't work. We've got to reacquaint right across the criminal justice system, all the way from the police to the judiciary and how the courts operate, the difference between criminals, genuine criminals, and law-abiding citizens. We've lost that definition. That schism needs to be re-identified. And the other thing we've got to, of course, reacquaint ourselves with is the importance of doing right by victims. So often we find the criminal justice system, as in this case, is prepared to forget the victim, who I believe in some of the victims of these men are up in arms naturally about these men being released early. We forget that they have been abused as children, and we're opening the gates of these prisons to release these vermin back into society, where presumably some of them will reoffend.
Let's get this straight. Let's get this straight. What the government is saying is, of course, Andy Burnham did say, right, I have reviewed this. We won't be letting sex criminals out. We won't be letting rapists out. We won't be letting sexual assaulters out. But it seems that grooming gang, rape gang members will not be among those that he says cannot be released. So, again, this is just playing with words. Something has to be done about this. Let me ask you about this, Ben. Kemi Badenoch has announced she says, I will never form a coalition with woke reform. She says that Reform UK are increasingly playing the victim. They have a victim mentality. They certainly do seem to call the police a lot, don't they?
Well, it's, I'm the wrong person to ask.
No, Ben, you're exactly the right person to ask.
Next, you're going to have Nigel Farage on the phone saying I'm bitter and twisted. But the reality is that whenever anything happens to Nigel Farage, he does play the victim card. When most recently, when he's been investigated by the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner, the Electoral Commission, Metropolitan Police is investigating donations reform. It's all the establishment versus reform. It's all them bullying us. When Anne Widdecombe was so brutally murdered, it became a story about how Nigel Farage was the most targeted MP in the history of British politics, forgetting, of course, that other MPs have suffered mortal violence as well. And when it comes to free speech, they're often sacking members of their own party, shutting down the opportunity for people to speak out, which again is part of the woke mind virus. This victimhood culture, which is at the heart of woke, the lack of preparedness to have open debate, which is at the heart of woke, is, I'm afraid, has infested reform. And the other thing I'll say about reform, and I say this as partially of an ethnic minority, my dad's Pakistani, it used to make, even when I was a member of the party, it used to make me make my eyes roll that they kept talking about the importance of having lots of diversity in the party. I don't care about diversity. People shouldn't care about your skin color. It's not a positive thing to have people from ethnic minorities in your party or in your organization. What you want is the best of all people. So I'm afraid I do agree with Kemi. There is a kind of victimhood culture, lack of preparedness to speak freely, progressive discrimination within reform. And
do you think, Ben, with your knowledge of Nigel Farage, that he will enjoy being depicted as woke?
Well, he keeps saying he's going to be to the left of the Tory party by 2029. I think he's achieved it. He is left of the Tory party. And there will be people listening to me going, Ben, you're just saying that because you don't like Nigel Farage. I don't like Nigel Farage if I don't like him. It's not a personal thing, because of the positions he adopts. which is so often wrong. And he is wrong on free speech. Shutting down free speech in his party. He's wrong on the progressive discrimination thing. He's wrong on victimhood. He's also wrong, by the way, on many of his policies, because he's challenged by this desire to appeal to the left wing. He wants to appeal to the left wing, so he dances to their tune. And he's got many policies wrong, and I can enumerate them if you want me to, on the back of that desire.
We haven't got time. Listen, let me quickly ask you about this. Yesterday, I interviewed a guy called Tim McNally. He is organising the campaign to save the Oxfordshire village of Piddington from having, it's got 350 people live there, 46 children, and there is a proposed migrant site, asylum seeker site, to be established close to there, with 1,250 young male asylum seekers. And he says, look, you know, if these asylum seekers are foisted upon us, we have 46 children. If you look at the village, it is a typical picture postcard village, you know, with a steeple, a pub, fields in the background. It's a beautiful place. He says, you know, the thing that worries us most about this is this will, if we have 1,250 foreigners, foreign men, most of whom can't even speak English, from very different cultures, just down the road, who will be let out every day or any time they want, they can come into the village. He said this will materially, significantly affect the childhoods of the kids who live here. And he has organised this tactic where he's going to declare that Piddington is an independent nation. I mean, it's just a publicity stunt, but we agreed, Tim and I, that he's just one local resident campaigning against this increasing number of vast asylum seeker camps, houses of multiple occupation. There's still many thousands of them in hotels all over the country, more and more coming in. This government has no plan to stop them coming in. It just has increasing plans to accommodate all the asylum seekers who come here. And Tim and I basically agreed that the battle for Piddington in microcosm is the battle for Britain.
It's a national battle.
It's a battle for Britain, isn't it? We are losing the identity of this country with the importing of thousands and thousands and thousands of foreign young men. It's bizarre that we have a Prime Minister that doesn't really care about this.
Well, we've had a series of Prime Ministers who haven't cared about it. And they're not asylum seekers, if you don't mind me saying so, Kevin. They're illegal migrants. They shouldn't be in the country. They should never have entered the country. There's no route for them to be in this country. And they're being settled. They've got this ridiculous policy the government has to diffuse the settlement of these people right across the United Kingdom. They ought to be held in one locality, under lock and key, detained because they broke into the country illegally, until we can decide what to do with them, so that they're contained, they can't threaten communities, they can't change the nature of communities. Of course, Piddington is concerned about the 46 children they've got, but that community will cease to exist in any shape or form as a defined community when it's swamped by 1,250 illegal migrants. And as you say, this is a battle for Britain. This is a battle for the identity, security and economy of Britain.
We're at the tipping point, Ben. We really, really are. And we have a Prime Minister, first of all, who's on holiday. Secondly, has barely mentioned the migrant crisis. He prefers to focus on stuff that interests him, as opposed to the primary concerns of the people of this country, as in the migrant crisis. Never once before Andy waltzed into number 10 unhindered by democracy did I hear anyone saying, well, what we really need is a new social care system, and boy, oh boy, I wish we had millions of mayors. So this guy just ploughs his own furrow regardless of what we're concerned about, what we're worried about, and that is extremely worrying. Ben, I have to go, but great to talk to you as always. Great start to the show with Ben Habib there, chairman of the Great British PAC, former MEP and of course passionate Brexiteer. Next up, we'll talk to Baroness Claire Fox about our friend, the preposterous professor. Well, he's not a professor anymore because he quit yesterday, Jason Arday. We'll look into what this is really about. It's such a strange saga, but I think it cuts to the heart of the madness of modern Britain. What happens when the woke mind virus sends otherwise sensible people clinically insane? It really does. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Should council staff who don't follow the law be sacked, and should councillors who urge them not to lose their roles and lose the whip?
Well, I don't know is the answer.
Why don't you know?
It would depend.
I know the answer to that.
It would depend on the circumstances.
No, it wouldn't.
Before I start calling for
if you urge people to break the law, you shouldn't be in public office.
I think it would depend on the manner in which that was done and the circumstances.
Why?
But my overall point is that they need to abide by the code.
So if they need to abide by the code and they don't, they'd be breaking the law and urging someone else to break the law.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to my next guest. She is the director at the Academy of Ideas, former Brexit Party MEP, and author of I Find That Offensive. Welcome to Baroness Claire Fox. Hi, Claire.
Hi, Kevin. Hi.
Let's talk about Jason Arday. Have you got a sick bag or a bucket handy? Because I'm going to play you a little bit of footage that might make you feel a little nauseous. Have a look at this.
And now Jason is days away from achieving another ambition.
Hey, so good to see you.
Here's his new boss at Cambridge.
We do have a lot of work to do, but I feel really optimistic.
There will be those that think this is a tokenistic appointment. What are your thoughts on this?
The board of electors on your interview day were absolutely unanimous. We are so lucky to have you. You are the best in the world in terms of the research that you do.
Yeah, that's Professor Hilary Cretin. Oh, I'm sorry, I misread that. But Hilary Kremin. But my God, I mean, that sums it up, doesn't it? What I've been saying about this, Claire, fascinated to get your view on it. But what we've got here is a case of what happens when the woke mind virus sends normally sensible people completely insane. A lot of people saying, how come these brilliant people at Cambridge didn't realise the obviousness of this guy's ludicrous lies? I'll tell you why, because they didn't want to. They wanted the kudos of being able to boast, we've got the youngest black professor, he's only 39, and look where it's led them. It's led them into an utter shambles. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, this is a really serious scandal. I mean, we can get a lot of laughs out of the absolute fabulously, you know,
Walter Mitty nonsense.
I mean, the Walter Mitty. You can't believe that anyone's
They're so funny, aren't they?
And it is quite funny because every day has brought even more shocking revelations. But this is a huge scandal at the heart of the British establishment. This is Cambridge University, which is one of the world's top places for scholarship. And I believe in the elite universities as being so important in terms of expanding society's knowledge. Can you imagine a situation where they were so credulous as to go along with it? Now, one thing that a lot of people think it's a kind of EDI hire situation. No doubt it is, but it's much worse than that. This is a university that went out of its way to bend its rules in order to accommodate somebody because of their neurodivergence. Yes, they were black, but it wasn't just that. It was they loved the autism story. They actually actively sought out more tales of his victimhood so that they could say, we are a kind, inclusive university that is doing everything we can. And when she said he's the world's best, the best class, can you imagine what a mockery that makes of any sense of academic standards? I mean, anyone now who's thinking I would absolutely, you know, kill myself working hard to get the grades, to get into Cambridge, trying to come from all parts of the world, as many people do, well, just think, God, I'm not going to bother. All I need to do is to turn up with a list of victim points and I'll walk through the door.
Yeah. I don't know if you're aware, Claire, but I went to Cambridge and it's one of the best days out I ever had. But that notwithstanding, this guy, I mean, the lies are ridiculous. Did you know, by the way, it looks at almost 100%, this has been checked out using the appropriate technology, that to top off this guy's fantastical series of ludicrous lies, his resignation letter in which he said, don't mistake this for me admitting, effectively said, don't mistake this for me admitting to lying, the narrative surrounding my departure. But that letter was created by AI. Just gets worse, doesn't it?
It does get worse. Although, I mean, there is nothing that you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, this guy, yeah.
On the more serious point about the rest of it, I think that he is not our problem. The problem is those academics on the appointees board that put him into place. Yeah. The problem is all of those people who signed that letter suggesting that anyone who dared criticise his appointment were racist. Yeah. The problem is the fact that when he reported a reporter from the Times Higher Education Supplement to the police actually investigated.
I know, it's just shocking that they've apologised. They've apologised. Yeah. Mark Rowley, the Met Police Chief, said, sorry about that, we dropped the ball on this one. But what were coppers thinking? Hang on, somebody's phoned us and said they're being asked questions by a journalist. Ooh, that sounds like a crime. What were they thinking?
Because that's the problem is that if you look at all the different institutions that, you know, make up the British state, you find out that they're all hollowed out completely. And they themselves have bought into this idea that in order to have any sense of mission or purpose, they need to show that they are not elitist, that they are prepared to listen to the victims. And they've all been on equality, diversity and inclusion courses. And so they've got this narrative in their head. But the thing that's frightening in a way, never mind anything else, is that this won't be a lone case. We just know about this ludicrous story, and I think his resignation letter, if it was written by AI, the fact that he didn't correct it when it said, you know, I'm not denying anything. I refuse to accept the narratives around me. I mean, narratives is a good word because it really is storytelling.
Yeah.
But as I say, it's not him that is the issue here. It's that the British establishment is so full of self-hatred that its institutions are so desperate to prove themselves as being on the side of the victim that they will sell their soul, diminish all standards, and that includes the police. All those people who signed the letters, many of them, by the way, in the House of Lords.
Zach Polanski, several MPs, various lords, Paul Boateng.
Lords, baronesses,
all essentially signing a petition to say that querying, questioning this incredibly dodgy, preposterous professor and his ludicrous lies was an act of racism. That we're picking on him because he's black. Now, this issue of his colour, people say, oh, well, you know, this wouldn't be a story if he wasn't black. Well, he's the one who brought it up. A guy called Jack Grove is the reporter for the Times Higher Education supplement. He was written to by Jason Arday's lawyers saying, you know, you should cease attacking our client, and we believe that these attacks may be racially motivated. I mean, what a preposterous, what a disgusting thing to say in the first place.
It's a disgusting thing
But it brings the race issue into it. We didn't start that. Those of us criticising this guy, it's nothing to do with his colour. As you say, Claire, this is about the prestige and the reputation of, you know, basically our finest university, along with Oxford, one of the world's great universities. If this guy was white and had achieved this lofty position with the same litany of lies, it would still be the same kind of story. It's nothing to do with his colour, except for they celebrated, oh, we've got the 39-year-old youngest black professor. It's down to them. They're the ones who focused on his colour, not the rest of us.
Yeah, and they became credulous in doing so. And the point about the autism was they, you know, because neurodivergence, ADHD, autism is the kind of new black, as it were, which is where you basically say, this person is special and we're going to give them all sorts of credit as a consequence. I think that what we have to say here is that the accusation of racism is used to chill then any interrogation.
Yes, exactly.
But imagine how insulting it is to all those black students, and I'm referencing that they're black, who fought like hell to get into great institutions because they put the work in, they absolutely proved that they were intellectually able to cope with the highest degree of intellectual scrutiny, only now to find out that one of their peers was celebrated actually not based on any academic credentials or indeed any academic ability, because one of the things that's been shown is that he got away with talking gobbledygook.
Yeah, his PhD is hilarious.
You listen, and also you listen to him doing talks, right? And it is very funny. I mean, he was on a kind of Patrick Christie show on tour when Patrick was there.
He came on here to say that Enid Blyton was a racist,
But he says all these words, and we can all understand the words, but they don't make any sense. They don't string together.
Yeah.
And nobody dared say, it's like the Emperor's New Clothes, nobody dared say, you're talking absolute rubbish.
Yeah.
Jason, go away and read a book.
Yeah.
But then, of course, that would probably be some kind of discrimination because he couldn't read very well, as he keeps pointing out.
Exactly.
And he acquired knowledge in a different manner.
Yeah, he turned himself into, you know, the ideal human being for these Cambridge wokies. And as you say, that deprived a genuine, possibly black candidate of that job. And do you know what happens in the left-wing world of wokery? Do you know what dies a death? Meritocracy.
Exactly right. And I think that why I'm concerned is because Jason is just a bit player in this. What really
he is. You're right. Absolutely.
Is the people in control, in power in this country with enormous levers that can change the lives of many people who are in charge of the seat of learning, like in Cambridge. The fact that they sold the pass on this, and it's their heads I want to see roll. Jason can go off and be a Walter Mitty somewhere else. Mind you, you did say he's no longer a professor. I'm afraid you don't lose your professorship.
So he is a professor, is that right? Well,
he's a professor in a number of universities. It'll be hard to get rid of the title.
It's ridiculous. I mean, he is a sad little man who needs help. You're right. The story is about all the people who opted to be taken in by his fantastical, nonsensical claims. It's an extraordinary story of our times, Claire. Thanks so much for coming on about it. Good to talk to you, as always. Baroness Claire Fox there, Director at the Academy of Ideas. Let me know what you think about this. Cambridge has turned itself into a laughingstock. This guy's claims was just so... He ran 35 marathons, was it, 600 miles in 12 days with a broken leg. He did his PhD 3 weeks after brain surgery for a brain tumour. He was in the TV series 7 Up. That's the programme where they visit a bunch of kids every 7 years throughout their lives. It started in 1964. He's 39 years old. It's unlikely that he would be in that programme, isn't it? But just absolutely fantastical lies that were believed by people, by credulous people, not because they actually believed him, in my view, but because they wanted to believe him. We're going to stick with this story after the break and talk about the scandal. It is a scandal for Cambridge University, but it's also a scandal for the police. Absolutely outrageous. That they began a criminal investigation into the journalist investigating Jason Arday for criminal harassment. So, according to Scotland Yard, for a little while before they realised the errors of their ways, a journalist asking questions, going about his job, was committing a crime. Journalism for Scotland Yard became a crime. Where do they think they're working? London or North Korea? We'll talk about that next. Stick around.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, I've been lucky in my journalistic career because when I've been onto stories, I've been asking questions of people to try and stand those stories up. The police have never investigated me for criminal harassment. No such luck for Times higher education journalist Jack Grove, who was reported to the police about the preposterous professor Jason Arday. Jack was investigating his allegedly plagiarised PhD. He was reported to the police for criminal harassment. He only learned of this investigation when the police let him know that they dropped the case. Meanwhile, he received legal letters from Arday's lawyers telling him to stop asking their client questions and suggesting that his, and I'm quoting, attacks on Jason Arday. They weren't attacks, they were questions. His attacks on Jason Arday were racially motivated. They just weren't, were they? Let's talk to former police officer and founder of Fair Cop, Harry Miller. Well, Harry, this one takes the biscuit, doesn't it? A journalist pursuing a story, asking questions, finds himself being investigated by the police for criminal harassment, and at one point the coppers told Jack Grove, this Times higher education reporter, to stop asking Jason Arday questions. Now today, Sir Mark Rowley, the Met Police Chief, has apologised for this horror and said, I'm sorry, we dropped the ball on this. But what on earth were coppers at Scotland Yard thinking that somehow a journalist, a reporter, practising journalism was committing a crime? What's going on there?
I thought it was very interesting when Sir Mark Rowley, this country's most senior police officer, said that the police on this occasion had dropped the ball. As though they should have been in the stadium catching balls in the first place. This is not the first time this has happened, is it? It's only very recently that the police had to apologise and pay out another journalist who was investigating stories about immigration. That was Alison Pearson.
Yes.
This is not the first time. Just 2 years ago, I was dragged into a police station in Lincolnshire for writing an article in The Critic. So it's not the first time that this has happened. The fact that it keeps happening is troubling, because we can no longer dismiss these as the blip of the odd, over-enthusiastic, slightly ignorant police officer. Clearly, there is something built into the system of policing that causes police officers to go and do this complete rubbish in the first place. What they don't realise is where the scope of their limitation is. Police officers are meant to be looking for crimes to solve, for villains to catch, for lives to save. It's not their job to question the press, the great British press, who are involved in legitimate journalism. But they are doing this because they've extended their remit from policing to being social engineers.
Yeah, I think also the woke enforcement squad as well.
That's exactly what they've become. They try to get themselves ahead of the law and on the right side of history. And it doesn't matter what they do in pursuit of that. They've become ideological terrorists in actual fact. They may not blow people up, but I'll tell you what, a knock on the door at night by a police officer, a visit by Prevent, a word in the ear from a police officer who says you're getting very close to committing a crime, it has a very chilling effect on society. Most people shrivel and back off what they're doing when the police come knocking. And it's absolutely appalling that this is happening time and time again. But what worries me, Kevin, is not only has this been going on for so long, but there appears to be no Home Secretary who has got the balls or the willingness to put a stop to it. That's what needs to happen. We need somebody in authority, a Home Secretary, the National Police Chiefs Council, the College of Policing, to say this has gone on long enough. Look, in Boeing, if we find the 737s or 757s keep crashing, somebody in that organisation would say, what the hell is going on? And they would ground they would ground the force until they had fixed the problem. But that's not happening with policing, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, you're right, Harry. Let's talk about another part of our broken police force, the smouldering ruins, I describe it, of our Britain's once great police force. It's now the scourge. It's a scourge of this nation, it really is. Now, Mark Rowley, again, he's a busy man at the moment, isn't he? Apologising for all sorts of balls-ups under his watch. Well, this one, he's said that the system of holding police to account is broken. He's got a good point. We're talking about Sergeant Martin Blake, who in the course of his duty shot dead the gangster Chris Carber. This was and then went to trial for that. I don't think he ever should have gone to trial. Poor guy had to go through a long trial. The jury found him not guilty. That was in October 2024. But the gross misconduct charge against him in the internal police charge remained in position. And only now, 4 years after Carber was shot dead, quite rightly, righteously, clearly, by Sergeant Martin Blake, have the police deigned to clear him. So 2 years after he was cleared at the Old Bailey, the police finally say, yes, misconduct. No, he's not guilty of that. That is an absurd system. I would imagine it enrages coppers because there's no protection for them in carrying out the course of their duty.
No, you're absolutely right. And again, Sir Mark Rowley says the system is broken. Well, fix the bloody thing.
Yes, mate, it's your police force.
Years and years and years. Fix it. It's as simple as that. Now, this has got a terrible knock-on effect because we are asking police officers, armed police officers, in highly dangerous situations to make split-second, life-changing decisions. And what we want them to do is to assess the situation and decide whether pulling the trigger and shooting somebody dead is the right thing to do. Now, that's a big enough ask as it is. What we don't want factoring into that equation is pulling the trigger the right thing to do, and what is the effect going to be upon my life for the next 4 years? That is an intolerable burden upon police officers who are being asked to do a task that most members of the public would never be able to do. So the Met, the NPCC, the College of Policing, the Home Secretary, again, they need to fix this broken system, because if we want police officers who are armed, they have to be prepared to shoot. There's no point in having police officers who are too afraid to pull the trigger. We might as well just give them water.
Absolutely. I'll tell you another thing, Harry. One day, we might all realise, the police might realise, that Sir Mark Rowley's utterly useless. But good to have you on the show, Harry. Great pleasure. Thank you very much. Harry Miller, former police officer and founder of Fair Cop there. We're going to go to break now, and when we come back, we're going to discuss what I think is the most outrageous story I've heard in quite a long time. A London council, Westminster Council, are planning to ban vertical drinking, standing up in a pub and having a pint or a glass of wine or a scotch or whatever. And outlaw going to the bar to actually buy a drink. So they want pubs to be waiter service only and no standing up while you drink. I say that is a direct assault on the British way of life. That is central to our way of life, isn't it? What is this, these town hall tyrants? What on earth are they thinking? We'll talk to a shocked pub landlord next. Stay tuned.
Should council staff who don't follow the law be sacked, and should councillors who urge them not to lose their roles and lose the whip?
Well, I don't know. Is the answer?
Why don't you know?
It would depend.
I know the answer to that.
It would depend on the circumstances.
No, it wouldn't.
Before I start calling for
if you urge people to break the law, you shouldn't be in public office.
I think it would depend on the manner in which that was done and the circumstances.
Why?
But my overall point is that they need to abide by the code.
So if they need to abide by the code and they don't, they'd be breaking the law and urging someone else to break the law.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
So do you fancy going to a pub? You're not allowed to go to the bar and buy a drink, and you're not allowed to stand up and have a pint or a glass of wine. Against the law. That seems to be the system being proposed by Westminster Council in central London. That will involve a big drinking area, Soho. Well, it's central London, so lots and lots of pubs, lots of drinking establishments. But I say, not being allowed to stand up and drink a pint and having to sit down at a table and waiting for a waiter to come over to you, that's not a pub. And that is an attack on the British way of life. It's central to the way we live, isn't it? Outrageous. Let's talk to a pub landlord. He runs The Hand at Llanarmon in Wales. Jonathan Greatorex. Welcome, Jonathan.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm good. Well, this fortunately won't affect you at this moment, but who knows? This might catch on. But Westminster Council, not far from here, they encompass the West End of London, Soho, very busy area, lots of pubs, are proposing that pubs ban people buying pints and buying booze at the bar. They have to sit down at a table and wait for a waiter to come over. And also ban what they call vertical drinking, which would be, for example, you and I standing in a boozer, you know, with our arm on the bar, enjoying a pint. I say this is more than just an attack on drinkers. This is an attack on the British way of life. Pubs, if you say you can't go to the bar and you've got to wait for a waiter, I call that a restaurant, not a pub. Yeah. What do you think about this, Jonathan?
I mean, you know, let's be honest, it's very clear that there is a war against hospitality at the moment. And you know, they're coming for us at every single way. Look, this isn't new to us in Wales. We had this lunacy during COVID where it was illegal to go up to a bar to order a drink, but you could go up to a bar to pay for a drink, but you had to be sitting down to drink the drink. I mean, it's absolute lunacy of the highest order. I mean, everyone knows that, you know, Westminster, street drinking is one of the great British traditions. Yeah. And it gets to the point where when they start trying to erode our British traditions, it's time to say, right, no more.
Well, also, Jonathan, they could say, you know, I wouldn't personally be in favour of this, but they say, look, you've got a problem with all your drinkers spilling onto the pavement, people can't get past. So, you know, sorry, but all your drinkers are going to have to stand in the pub, or if you've got a pub garden, even better. You don't have to ban standing up and having a pint altogether, vertical drinking, a horrible new name for that. And you certainly don't have to ban going to the bar to buy a drink. Going to the bar to buy a drink is a very British thing. It doesn't often exist in foreign countries, but we all love it. And we all love standing up and having a pint or a glass of wine with your friends. But you know this, Jonathan, you know, blokes in particular. We prefer to stand up and drink than sit down at a table. This is an assault on our way of life. It really is. Absolutely.
It's a disgrace. And you know, the problem is, hospitality, we've got two problems. Number one is, by our very nature, we're quite hospitable people. We tend to get, we tend not to go on strike and, cause a lot of trouble. But secondly, of course, we're licensed. And so what they're planning to do is use the licensing laws against the pubs. So they're suggesting that, yes, you can serve alcohol, but you can only serve it if it's brought to you by a waitress. I mean, they are completely out of touch with reality. My salary bill 12 years ago was about £1,800 a week. To employ the same number of people to do the same hours now, it's about £5,000.
Really?
My business rates went up by 70%.
They're attacking. They don't. I think it's the Labour government have created an atmosphere where pubs are not approved of. This goes hand in hand, doesn't it, with Labour's attempt to ban smoking in pub gardens, and of course the taxes that you all get. I mean, Andy Burnham said he's going to give you a bit of a tax break, but that is on the back of rising taxes all the time. I think that the socialists, they don't really like people enjoying themselves. They don't like the idea of people going to the pub and having a few sherbets. You know what I mean?
No, I know. Well, they don't like anyone else apart from themselves, because, of course, let's not forget the first thing that Starmer and Reeves did when they left Downing Street was go for it.
And they went to the pub, didn't they? I know which pub they went to as well. It's a good pub.
Yeah. And it's they wouldn't have been allowed in my pub.
Yeah, you're one of the great pub landlords who banned Labour MPs. Good for you.
We are. It is a nonsense, and on top of that, we've got this assault of VAT. VAT is completely out of line with the rest of Europe, and we need that changed. We've got to have a VAT cut in this country, because otherwise we're not going to survive as an industry. And so, they've got to start recognising what we do, surely.
Exactly right. As I say, I just think Labour, in terms of the government, they just don't like pubs. They don't like the idea of, the plebs enjoying themselves. Well, I say that Labour can go to hell with that attitude, and I say that Westminster Council can go to hell with banning vertical drinking. And while we're at it, Jonathan, let's ban the term vertical drinking. It's modern jargon and it's disgusting.
Absolutely.
Standing up, having a pint, and that should not be outlawed. Listen, Jonathan, I've got to go, but great to talk to you. Thank you so much. Jonathan Greatorex there. He is the landlord at The Hand in Llanarmon in Wales. Next up, we'll talk to Isabel Oakeshott. She's going to join us after the 5 o'clock news. We're going to go through some of the big stories of the day. Did you know, by the way, that Britain's national debt has now soared above the £3 trillion mark? It's unsustainable. It's unsustainable. We'll talk about that next and other stories, so you better stay exactly where you are. Back in a mo.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is the second hour of this excellent edition of Drive Time. Lots going on. A couple of apologies or mistakes that I've made. You know, usually there's a huge list of them. First of all, I began the show by banging on about Meghan's 46th birthday. I don't know where that came from. It's actually her 45th birthday. Very, very important to put that right. I mean, I'm sure you all really care. I certainly don't. But anyway, we will be revisiting the Meghan birthday drama a little later in the show with Kinsey Schofield. Extraordinary scenes. Extraordinary scenes. Now, also, we spoke just now, of course, about this bizarre proposed law in central London banning people from vertical drinking, standing up in pubs or buying booze from the bar. As I said, an assault on a traditional British way of life. I should say, I should have said what the council had to say. So Councillor Tim Barnes of Westminster Council, he's the deputy leader there. He is also the cabinet member for growth and planning. Tim Barnes said, "We want people to go out in the West End and have a good time. Our guidance is simply about encouraging venues to manage their customers so people don't pack onto pavements or excessive drinking doesn't disturb others passing by." Hey, Tim, why don't you just butt out of people's lives? Seriously. It's bad enough with his government sticking their nose into our business, but local councils, just leave people alone. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Let's go over to my next guest. She is Talk's brilliant international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Welcome, Isabel.
Good afternoon.
Let me try this one on you first. It's something I haven't properly discussed yet, but it's financial, so it's unlike me. But basically, Britain's national debt has just soared above £3 trillion. That means that the Labour government is now borrowing, listen to this, £4,270 every second, or, if you like, £360 million every day. This is unsustainable, isn't it? This is just a massive concrete boots around our national ankles. We're sinking fast under this. This is not talked about enough, our financial crisis.
And the reason it isn't talked about is because these figures are just so gargantuan. I mean, you did really well there by just sort of boiling it down to what that means every second, every day. But still, to an awful lot of people, they just don't really see this as sort of real money. And I really understand that. I remember when I was young, when I was at school or a student or whatever, you know, people would talk about taxpayer money. And I didn't really kind of know what it meant. I didn't really engage with it. It was just other people's money. And I think until you're trying really hard to make ends meet and earn a living, and you see how much tax is being taken out of your pay packet, and you see and feel every day what you're getting in return, the concept of taxpayers' money and how well or badly it's spent doesn't actually begin to annoy you that much. And it's only when you're working every hour and still not having an awful lot left over for yourself at the end of the week or the month, and always ending up with nothing, that you start kind of getting really frustrated when you see crazy abuse of taxpayers' money. And the reality is that we don't need to be anything like in this level of debt. We are a wealthy creating country. We have brilliant businesses and industries and all sorts of sectors that generate great returns. But unfortunately, we are shackled by an ever-growing, heavier welfare state and by the number of people that just don't want to work, can't be bothered to work, think that they can rely on the state for at least some of their income, even if they're perfectly capable of working. And the abuse of taxpayers' money by governments, not just this government, by successive governments, is absolutely off the dial. We talk about these examples every day, don't we? Talk every day about, for example, what's happening with the small boats and the cost of that. But, remember things like the £100 million on a bat tunnel for HS2. They chuck money around as if they're that old Isabel Oakeshott, the student, who didn't know what it meant, except they do know what it means. And what it means is our country getting poorer and poorer. And at some point, even though this all feels very academic and hypothetical, the bond markets, those who borrow money, those who are lending us the money, our government, to continue being profligate, says, actually, we're not lending you anymore. We're going to put these rates up high beyond your capability of paying, because you just don't have the cash left.
Well, it was generations ago when the then Labour Chancellor of the Exchequer, Dennis Healey, had to go to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, to bail the country out because we couldn't borrow any more money because we'd fallen into such debt. This new Healey, John Healey, our current Chancellor of the Exchequer, has the grim prospect of possibly having to do the same. If we carry on like this, we already are paying the highest interest of any country in the G7 on loans we have to make. Now, as this debt continues to soar, as I say, at the extraordinary rate of £4,270 every second, we fall more and more into debt, and in the end it won't be a question of lenders charging us astronomical interest, which is what they do at the moment. Lenders will say, sorry, you have now reached the tipping point. We don't trust us ever getting this money back. We're not borrowing you anything, not lending you anything. And at that point, this Healey, the current Healey, may also have to go to the IMF. It's a serious crisis. Think about that, folks. Let's move on, though, Isabel. I need to get your take. I'm sure I won't go into the details. You must be fully across the story of the moment. What is your take on the bizarre Jason Arday, the preposterous professor at Cambridge University story? What do you think of it?
Well, I think that this story kind of encapsulate what so many of us have long suspected, which is that different standards of scrutiny, and particularly critical, hostile scrutiny, are applied to certain demographics in the world of academia. And everybody was so falling over themselves in the world of academia to hail this guy as this great poster boy for diversity and enormously impressive achievements. And I should say, his achievements were pretty impressive without having to be embellished. That they didn't actually apply their critical thinking, which is ironic for a university like Cambridge, which is supposed to be all about that. And they allowed him to exaggerate, and they allowed him to plagiarize, and they then
exaggerate. He told barefaced, ludicrous lies. I ran 12 marathons in 6 days or whatever it was, and raised millions for charities. All the charities said they'd never heard of him. That he starred in that series 7 Up, which started in 1964. So kind of difficult for a 40-year-old, as it were. So on and so forth. The lies were just fantastical. And yet the academic establishment at Cambridge chose to believe them, which, as I keep saying, is what happens when the woke mind virus makes otherwise sensible people go completely mad.
And worse than that, it's not only that they chose to believe it, it's that when it was challenged by sensible people with some kind of thinking what's likely type brain,
they were accused of being racists.
By a Times, I think it was it Times Education?
Times Higher Education Supplement, yeah. Yeah, they start frothing at the mouth and saying this is outrageous. How can we challenge this fine, upstanding pinnacle of academic achievement? And
And they start throwing around the usual claim, oh, it's all racist. Yeah, come on, show me another one. And they'd be left with egg on their faces. And I see The Guardian today is sort of wringing its hands that people on the right are a bit gleeful about this. But I think we deserve to be gleeful. You know, I do think we deserve to be gleeful, because this does actually expose for what we've all suspected.
Well, the DEI, yeah, exactly right. The DEI crowd imposed this wokery on us, left, right and centre, and we have to just put up and shut up and accept it. So when you get a case of a diversity poster boy who turns out to be a sort of Walter Mitty fantasist and liar, yeah, there's a certain satisfaction about it. But I think there's also a great sadness that a great educational establishment, one of the greatest universities in the world, Cambridge University, has sunk so low, made such a complete fool of itself, a laughingstock, because it was so keen to be able to boast, the kudos of being able to boast. We have the youngest black professor in all the world, you know. I mean, it's pathetic, really. It's pathetic. But we've reached out to Cambridge University, Jesus College, for they were the college that accepted Jason Arday as a professor. We've also reached out to the Good Law Project, which is credited with writing his resignation letter, although it looks as if that letter was written by AI. We've reached out to all of them. No reply. But what I want to hear from Cambridge and Jesus College is, just because this guy has suddenly quit, that should not excuse him being fully investigated. That college, Cambridge, needs to fully investigate him, and they need to fully investigate why so many allegedly brilliant academics fell for his absurd pack of lies.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. You know, it's the easiest thing to do, isn't it, to kind of jump before you're pushed, and that seems to be what he's done. And I think there's an irony here, because I think Cambridge has actually lately been slightly rowing back on its overzealous DEI recruitment policy in terms of undergraduates. I mean, it got to the stage where parents who have sacrificed pretty much everything to give their children the best possible education were beginning to wonder whether it was literally backfiring on them, because young people, brilliantly talented and clever young people from private schools, were being discriminated against because they had had a good education. And recently Cambridge actually rode back a bit on that policy, and from very excessive arguably DEI targets, started reaching out, specifically trying to recruit the brightest and best from some of the brightest and best schools, which makes every sense, really. I mean, I'm all for perhaps reducing the threshold for people coming from very tough backgrounds and terrible schools. But when it gets to the point that you're actively excluding exceptionally intelligent and well-educated people, you've got to ask what a university is for. Is it, number one, to be a tool for social engineering, or is it, number two, for the kind of fostering of academic brilliance and research capability?
Exactly right. Let's move on, because I know you know a lot about what's going on just across the channel on the north coast of France, and indeed now Belgium, in terms of the gathering of thousands of migrants. They are gathering in force right now, ready to come across, well, they already are coming across, you know, in an almost Spanish armada. Lee Anderson, Reform UK's chairman, has been over there on a sort of fact-finding trip, and he furiously discovered that British charities were handing out a kind of guide, a step-by-step guide to migrants about how to get themselves across the Channel to Britain. As he said, this is basically a crib sheet on how to cross the Channel safely. I think he means more how to cross the Channel illegally. You know, we ought to do something about this. These British charities, I think Care for Calais, do this sort of thing. We ought to stop them because this isn't helping.
So there are several things that could easily, very, very easily be done to weaken, if not fully disable, this people trafficking racket. And one of the things that wouldn't stop it completely, but would make a really big difference, is if there was a zero tolerance, I'm afraid, of so-called charitable operations in and around the migrant camps in primarily in Dunkirk now, but a little bit around Calais too. These individuals who are coming over on the boats have, by and large, they have nothing. The majority of them, in my view, and based on my extensive research on this, are not paying. You know, you can see from the pictures, these are sub-Saharan Africans, most of them. Others are a big contingent from Syria and Afghanistan. But they don't have 2 pennies to rub together, never mind the cost of their fare. And the whole system is propped up by, first of all, indented labour, you know, the promise of slave labour on the other side when you get to the UK to repay your fare, and by the camps, the charity volunteers, the Bleeding Hearts, that are dishing out food and phone chargers and other facilities to make it all possible. Without that, there would be no food for these people.
Yeah, well, Lee is saying, look, he actually said there's nothing wrong with feeding people and giving them water. Obviously, that's the humane and kind thing to do. But what he is objecting to, or pointing out is profoundly wrong, is that British charities are helping to distribute this leaflet, which is translated into 16 languages, including English, and directs migrants to online cartoons showing them how to win refugee status in Britain. This has been viewed more than 65,000 times, and it tells them there's a QR code which directs you to a website to tell you how to get across the Channel, you know, the best way to do it. Now, British charity workers are distributing this leaflet, and somehow or other, I think that should be stopped urgently.
I agree. I mean, I agree that strikes me as, frankly, pretty much treasonous. You know, the people that are coming over, most of them are simply very low-skilled economic migrants. I absolutely don't blame them for giving it a go, given what we provide them with on the other side. But I'm afraid some of them do not wish us well. And encouraging this trade is not in the interests of the British people, and it is a risk to national security. And the charities absolutely should not be doing that. And do you know what? I think there's a debate to be had about providing food and water and other facilities on the northern coastline of France. So I'm not clearly suggesting that I want to preside over and watch people starve. Of course, I don't want that. So that sort of aid has to be tapered off whilst you're applying other measures to stop the boat. The point is that if you've got big aid distribution points for a purely and entirely optional situation, you know, this is not people who are fleeing war from across a border right next door. They've travelled through plenty of places. Then that simply perpetuates the whole racket. And it is an evil racket. It really is, at the a risk of sounding like Keir Starmer. You know, these vile people smugglers are risking lives of their passengers. People are dying.
Yeah, we're doing obviously way too much to help these migrants once they get here illegally. You know, clearly we just offer them a load of incentives: free hotels, free food, 50 quid a week benefits, free doctors, free dentists, free lawyers, and on the list goes. So we know about that scourge, but British people on the other side of the Channel, in France, helping migrants, making life great for them. That's got to be stopped. It really has. Isabel, fantastic to talk to you as always. Thanks for coming on. Talk's excellent international editor there, Isabel Oakeshott. Next up, we are going to talk to a black writer, Albi Mancona, who's written an amazing and excellent piece for Spiked Online, explaining why as he puts it, the Jason Arday farce is an embarrassment to Black Britain. We'll talk to Albi next. Stay tuned.
Should council staff who don't follow the law be sacked, and should councillors who urge them not to lose their roles and lose the whip?
Well, I don't know. Is the answer?
What do I do? Why don't you know?
It would depend.
I know the answer to that.
It would depend on the circumstances.
No, it wouldn't.
Before I start calling for
if you urge people to break the law, you shouldn't be in public office.
I think it would depend on the manner in which that was done and the circumstances.
Why?
But my overall point is that they need to abide by the code.
So if they need to abide by the code and they don't, they'd be breaking the law and urging someone else to break the law.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's go straight over to my next guest. He's the co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism for Equality. He's written a brilliant article for Spiked Online about what he calls the Jason Arday farce, which is exactly what it is. Warm welcome to Albi Mancona. Hi, Albi.
Good evening.
Thanks for joining us. Before we get on to the crux of what you've written about, and by the way, I agree with every word, they started a petition, the Good Law Project, with whom Jason Arday seems to be connected, started a petition to rail against the sustained and malicious attacks on the academic integrity of Professor They said it's difficult to ignore the question of motivation when a distinguished black academic is repeatedly subject to baseless allegations after being fully exonerated. Well, they're not baseless allegations, are they? Now, among the signatures, there are several MPs, there are Lords, naturally, Zach Polanski is there. But I'm looking at the petition now, and signatures are piling in as we speak. People are still busy signing this petition, railing against the alleged persecution of this guy who is a farcical fantasist. I mean, I want to lay off Jason Arday himself. I think he's a troubled young man who needs help. The story here is about Cambridge University. I think it's also about what the woke mind virus does to otherwise sensible people. It sends them mad. It makes them make stupid decisions. That's what's happened at Cambridge. But as you say, Albie, it doesn't do Black Britain any favours, does it, this story?
I don't think it is at all. And I think you're right to say the story is about Cambridge University. And I know a number of people, as I mentioned in my Spiked piece, that have actually signed that Good Law Project open letter. And I know them to be good, honest, decent and fair people. And I'm sure all the people that have been signing that petition and are continuing to sign it did so in good faith because they saw an underdog, and out of human compassion and kindness, they were seeing someone be attacked by the media and they felt an urge to protect him.
But why would why would they still be signing it, Albie? I mean, I take your point when this petition was first started, before the full litany of this guy's ludicrous lies were exposed. But everybody knows that now, and they're still signing this petition. It's unbelievable.
Well, there will be people that still believe in their initial beliefs when it came to Jason Arday, that he's a man who has been wronged. I know that your colleague Julia Hartley-Brewer had a guest on earlier on today, Kehinde Andrews, who is someone that I know who certainly still believes that Jason Arday has been wrong. So people have different opinions on this, and it's still an ongoing debate. There may be some people, you have made up your mind about this. I think I've almost made up my mind about it. Maybe many of the listeners will have made up their minds about it as well. But there are other people who may disagree with us, and that is why I think they're probably continuing to sign that petition. So I think that's that point. But on the point about this doing no favours to black people, I really don't think it does. Of course, we shouldn't judge the actions of one person and then think that that represents an entire community. But unfortunately, the simple fact of the matter is that when someone from within the black community fails on this scale, it does just give any racist agitator, any detractor, all of the ammunition they need to say that the only way that black people can get to high positions in education or in finance or in media or in broadcasting or in law or in anything is through diversity, inclusion and equity schemes where standards are lowered. I don't think after Black Lives Matter the progressive establishment reacted properly. What people were asking for during Black Lives Matter was equal treatment, not special treatment. And it does seem in so many different cases, whether or not we're talking about in education, policing, in other employment avenues, that what some ethnic minorities are getting is special treatment, not equal treatment, and that's not actually what people were asking for.
Yeah, and as I say, I've got some sympathy for Jason Arday. I don't know what's going on with him, but I do think he's a troubled young man. And quite how he ever thought that some of his ludicrous stories would ever be believed is beyond belief, except for they were believed at Cambridge. I mean, you know what we're talking about, you know, running 12 marathons in 20 minutes or whatever it was to raise money for charities that had never heard of him. He turned himself into he quite cleverly turned himself into a poster boy for diversity, talked about his autism. He didn't speak until he was aged 18, suffered from ADHD and so on and so forth. So his story was a sort of diverse triumph over adversity. But the story really is why he was so accepted, why he was believed at Cambridge. And as I said at the outset, I think we've asked Cambridge for their response. What I think I want to see, and I'd be interested to see if you agree with me, Albie, is I'd like Cambridge not to do what Jason hopes that they will do now that he suddenly quit. I think it's a very significant he quit exactly at the point when Cambridge University finally joined the party and said, yeah, we do need to have a look at this guy. We've got to investigate this guy. The moment they announced it, he quit, saying, it's not because I lied, effectively saying, it's not because I lied, but it's the relentless glare of publicity taking its toll on me and all that. But we need to ask why Cambridge University credulously accepted all of his stories. It's because, I think, it isn't a case of them being stupid to believe him. I just think they desperately wanted to believe him so they could have the kudos in this woke world of boasting, we've got 39-year-old youngest black professor in Cambridge's history. Isn't that wonderful? That's what they wanted to do, wasn't it?
This isn't just a story of personal failure when it comes to Jason Arday. This is a story of institutional failure as well. And that institutional failure, in my view, doesn't just lie with Cambridge. It lies with many different universities. Liverpool John Moores University, which is where he did his PhD thesis, which has been the subject of a lot of plagiarism allegations, did an investigation into his 2015 PhD thesis and found no records of plagiarism. So that is also another issue. Then we have Cambridge that have come out more recently and said they're going to be opening an investigation. I think the college that he used to work at is also opening an investigation. It's a pretty damning indictment, I think, on our university system that actually these issues could not have been highlighted before. Now, we know that Jason has said, I think, in an interview with The Times or The Telegraph, that when he was doing his PhD thesis, he didn't actually have that much supervision. I think he just had a handful of sessions when actually you're meant to have numerous sessions per quarter with your tutor when you're writing a PhD. So perhaps he's been let down by the university system. It seems he was elevated far too quickly and without enough questioning when he entered his role at Cambridge. And I do think that Cambridge University desperately wanted to leave his story because they wanted to find a black professor. But I would just argue that there are so many talented black and brown people in this country that do not need special treatment in order to get into Cambridge chairs and professorships. I think of my own sister, who is an Oxford graduate who got into Oxford off her own back. I think of so many people that I know, both in the media and also within my personal life, people who have made something of their lives without special treatment. And I don't think black people don't need special treatment. We don't want special treatment. We've never asked for it. What people were asking for after BLM was equal treatment, and actually largely I think that has been achieved.
We disrespect, I think, people of colour if we extract them from systems of meritocracy. Academia should, of course, be a meritocracy. The cleverest people get the best jobs, regardless of the colour of their skin. If those cleverest people happen to all be white, bad luck. That's the way it is. But to sort of say, have a system, a clear system, whereby colleges, universities like Cambridge are desperately, looking to, shall we say, relax the rules, relax the scrutiny in order to get black people, people of colour, into these lofty professorships, lofty academic positions. That disrespects them, doesn't it?
Of course it disrespects them, but let's just look at the statistics. If we look at Oxbridge intakes in recent years, there have been a disproportionate amount of ethnic minority students entering Oxbridge at undergraduate level. We also know that particularly on courses like medicine, ethnic minorities are in fact overrepresented. Now, I don't argue that is a good thing or a bad thing. If those are the best people to get onto those courses, then those are the best people to get onto those courses. But it kind of disproves the point that if you are an ethnic minority, you are fundamentally disadvantaged versus a white person. Of course, there are still some avenues in society where there are some disadvantages with being an ethnic minority, whether or not we're talking about policing, for example, whether or not we're talking about sentencing outcomes, whether or not we're talking about health outcomes. There are still racial disparities to close in this country, but actually, I think by and large in the education sector, those racial disparities have actually been closed.
Albie, really good to talk to you. Come on again soon. Excellent stuff. Albie Mancona there, co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism for Equality. He's written a brilliant article. You can find it online for Spiked Online. The Jason Arday farce is an embarrassment to Black Britain. Now, basically, Jason Arday was patronised by the white establishment at Cambridge University. Oh, we found ourselves a little black guy. Oh, he's going to be we'll make him a professor. You know, he should be there because of his brilliance, not the colour of his skin, and he was clearly chosen because of the colour of the skin. That disrespects people of colour, and it patronises Jason. That's as simple as that. Well, we'll drop that story there. I think we've covered it, haven't we? Although I've got Darren Grimes on later. I might get his take on it. But next up, we're going to talk to a friend of the show, Khadija Khan, journalist, about extraordinary plans in an area of sort of northwest London. It's called Queen's Park. You've heard of Queen's Park Rangers? It's sort of around that area, and it's a very well-to-do area, very expensive houses around Queen's Park, but it's also a fairly diverse community as well. So anyway, there are plans to plonk in the middle of the Queen's Park community a mega mosque, 13 stories high, a massive thing which will tower over a neighbouring little Christian church. And apparently there are 15 other mosques within a 3-mile radius. Why do they need a new 13-storey high mega mosque? People fear, the locals fear, this is part of the Islamification of Britain. We'll talk about that next. Stick around.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, I think I laid out what this story is about before the break there. 13-storey mega mosque is planned for an area of London called Queen's Park. As I said, you heard of Queen's Park Rangers. It's kind of around there. Locals are saying, why do we need a 13-storey mega mosque? Ironically, on the site of a former pub. It will apparently tower over, almost blot out a tiny little, or a relatively tiny little Christian church next door. And the locals are saying, look, why do you need a 13-storey mega mosque when there are 15 other mosques in a 3-mile radius around this area. So it does beg that question. Anyway, this is called the UK Albanian Muslim Community and Cultural Centre. It will become, if this plan goes ahead, one of the biggest mosques in London. And you have to ask why this is necessary, given the number of other mosques in the area. And also, you know, it has triggered fears that this is part of the increasing Islamification of this country. Let's talk to friend of the show, journalist Khadija Khan. Welcome, Khadija.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for having me on.
Always a pleasure. What do you make about this? You know, I've got no objection to Muslims requiring mosques. Everybody needs a place. Well, if you're that way inclined, everybody needs a place to worship. But in this area of Queen's Park, this area of sort of northwest London, there are apparently within 3 miles of the proposed site of this mega mosque. It's a huge building, proposed building, 13 stories high, huge thing, great big white thing. It'll be quite a landmark if they ever build it. But within this 13-story mega mosque, there are 15 other mosques within a 3-mile radius. Why do you think the Islamic community would need a mega mosque when there are already 15 mosques in the local area? And by the way, what do you think locals are going to make of the fact that this mega mosque will tower over a neighbouring Christian church? It is maybe an image of our times.
I believe that this situation has understandably raised concerns among local residents. If I'm not wrong, the proposed building would accommodate hundreds, potentially thousands of people day and night for prayers, especially on Friday for Jummah prayer, which would lead to increased traffic, parking issues, and then noise and disruption in the area. And there has been a precedent here in London when in 2012 Newham Council rejected the Tablighi Jamaat's plan. And let me tell you, the Tablighi Jamaat is not just any Islamic organization, it is a radical Islamic organization. So the Newham Council rejected their plans to build a mega mosque due to concerns about its size and the potential impact on parking and traffic. And the council also took into consideration the mosque could affect nearby historical buildings. So the size and height of this proposed building would have similar effect. It would dominate the area, overshadow the Baptist church next door, as you just mentioned.
Let me just talk to the audience for a second, Khadija. If you're watching on TV, we've got simulated photos of footage of what this huge building will look like. And as Khadija just said, it is towering over this little Christian Baptist church next door. And frankly, it is a massive building that will dominate the entire area. If you have a mosque, Khadija, you might know about this because I don't. Why do you need 13 stories?
I mean, it is not an essential requirement for a mosque to be grandiose. The very first mosque built in Medina was constructed using simple mud brick and palm trunk pillars and a roof made of date palm leaves. Oh, goodness me, I just... Prioritize devotion over, you know, this grand architecture. And of course, a mosque built in the 7th century cannot entirely meet the needs of the 21st century. However, the main idea was to keep religious places humble. Unfortunately, Islamic imperialism led some Muslim invaders to construct large and monumental mosques as symbol of power. The large minarets were designed to project imperial power, religious authority, and absolute sovereignty. Rather than being purely functional spaces for the call to prayer, these colossal structures served as...
Do you think this colossal structure is possibly a part of this kind of Islamic imperialism. It certainly seems to be making a statement, and locals have expressed fears that they believe this is part of an increasing process of Islamification, and you can't blame them, considering within a 3-mile radius of this massive proposed new 13-storey mosque, there are 15 other mosques.
Exactly. This is the point. When there are so many mosques, there is no need to build such a mega mosque in this area. And the issue of having multiple mosques in one area has been a matter of concern in the West, particularly across Europe. In Switzerland, the construction of minaret is prohibited, as such constructions are viewed as symbol of political power. Similarly, in Italy, plans for large mosques have been cancelled or delayed due to strong opposition from local residents. In Munich, they have also protested against such mega mosque in a Bavarian town. In Austria, concerns have been raised about mega mosques that dominate town skylines. What often begins as an Islamic cultural center can escalate into a gigantic infrastructure project, as it has happened in the United States. Now, there are plans to build a Muslim-centered residential city in Texas called
I've seen that.
With Islamic schools, councils, potentially separately governed space. This project has been promoted as Muslim community that will serve
I've seen
as
that.
the epicenter.
Can I ask you? Yeah, I've seen that, Khadija. Can I ask you, like, a final question? Do we have cause to worry that there are, shall we say, Islamic extremists or Islamic fundamentalists who are planning this? They are planning more and more mosques. They are trying to establish massive mosques as if to make a statement that they are indeed plotting the increasing Islamicification of Britain. Do we have cause to worry about that?
I mean, this pattern makes people wary of such developments in the name of asserting religious freedom in the public space. If the goal is merely to meet the needs of local worshippers, then a humble place of worship that aligns with the local culture and architecture style should be sufficient. There is no need to create what some may perceive as a nuisance. And I think the Muslims, they enjoy freedom of religion in this country that they can never imagine in a Muslim majority country. They have mosques. If not mosques, there are buildings that have been converted into prayer rooms. There are meeting rooms. There are councils, operating up and down the country. So there is no need to build such mega structure, which is not in line with the culture of this country. And for me, it's like this is more of a presence of political, power than of religiosity.
It's extremely worrying. And if you ever try to park around Regent's Park on a Friday, where they have a big mosque there, it's pretty much impossible. So you have to Regent's Park. You have to worry about what such a huge establishment, as you said, potentially thousands of worshippers turning up there, what that will do to the local area. I do think it's a source of concern. Khadija, it is always, I say this every time, but it's a serious pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Khadija Khan there, journalist, friend of this programme. And next up, we're going to talk to Rebecca Ryan. She's the campaign director at Defund the BBC. It looks like the BBC's taken a right old drubbing in the new radio listening figures ratings. It's lost 750,000 listeners, and they all seem to be gravitating mainly away from Radio 2 and towards the new Greatest Hits channel, where Radio 2 veterans like Ken Bruce and Zoe Ball are all ending up. So the BBC is shedding the DJs that people want to listen to and replacing them with, it seems, DJs that people don't want to listen to. Welcome to the state broadcaster. We'll talk to Rebecca about that next. Stay tuned.
Should council staff who don't follow the law be sacked, and should councillors who urge them not to lose their roles and lose the whip?
Well, I don't know. Is the answer.
Why don't you know?
It would depend.
I know the answer to that.
Depend on the circumstances.
No, it wouldn't.
Before I start calling for
if you urge people to break the law, you shouldn't be in public office.
I think it would depend on the manner in which that was done and the circumstances.
Why?
But my overall point is that they need to abide by the code.
So if they need to abide by the code and they don't, they'd be breaking the law and urging someone else to break the law.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Another 750 listeners have switched off BBC Radio while the commercial sector continues to make gains. Particularly Radio 2 host, or former Radio 2 host Ken Bruce, Zoe Ball, now host shows on Greatest Hits Radio. That station keeps on growing. They've been going up at the rate of 54,000 weekly listeners, increase of 54,000 weekly listeners in the last quarter. Meanwhile, the Radio 1 and Radio 2 keep on hemorrhaging their audience. Why is this? Let's talk to campaign director at Defund the BBC, Rebecca Ryan. Yeah, Rebecca, here's the deal of what happens at Radio 2, it seems to me. You know, executives at the BBC, they're always sort of middle-aged. But they're obsessed with getting the young audience. They don't seem to realise that most young people can barely spell BBC. They have no idea what it is. They don't care. And there's as much chance of the average young person tuning in to listen to Radio 2 as me tuning into Radio 2, which is absolutely zero. So they get rid of all these oldsters like Ken Bruce, Zoe Ball, and then they crop up on Greatest Hits radios where the listeners flock to them. Why does the BBC self-harm like this, you know, sort of jettisoning really popular older people like Ken Bruce, who was definitively the most popular DJ in Britain, to replace them by younger people who don't get anything like the audiences?
Oh, it's just outrageous, isn't it? The BBC are just clearly desperate to try and snare this younger audience, like you say, try and sort of trap them into being sort of part of the BBC family. But like you said, no young people listen to the BBC. They don't listen to radio really at all. And then they've got rid of these, like you say, household names there who have just taken the audience with them. I mean, you know, people who listen to Zoe Ball are going to listen to her wherever she is. If you like listening to her in the morning, that's who you're going to listen to. So it's very arrogant of the BBC to think that they could just cut these people and still have the same kind of listener base. And what's really frustrating is that they then think they can keep charging people to pay for them. Obviously, they have to pay for the BBC Radio, but licence fee payers pay for them. But nobody wants to listen. And then they've got you've got this sort of 10 million listener gap between commercial radio and the BBC, which is completely outrageous given that the BBC is completely funded.
Yeah, I mean, the money they pay these people at the BBC is an absolute joke. Before they sort of sacked him for his dubious past, the breakfast host at Radio 2, Scott Mills, was on £750,000 a year, £750,000 a year, to sit there spinning discs. That's grotesque, isn't it?
It's absolutely outrageous. And this is the thing with the BBC. They're talking about cutting back on, you know, the amount of money that they have to spend, because it's been reported actually in the Sun that the BBC are losing $1 billion a year in revenue at the moment. So rather than cutting back on the huge expenditure that they've got, and it was just in the news today that these huge sort of travel contracts, the 250 million, they're cutting back on programming, and they're cutting back on things that people actually want to listen to, like Zoe Ball and Kevin. So yeah,
As I say, as far as I'm concerned, you know, the BBC can commit commercial suicide, even carry on like this. I don't really care what they do, but I have to care what they do because they keep making me pay 180 quid a year by law. If we get rid of the TV licence fee, then, you know, this will be up to them, but they're taking our money. And in my view, they are running the BBC's broadcasting arm really, really incompetently. Let me move on to another BBC story, if I can get your take on this, Rebecca. This is a strange one. You've been following the story of the murder of poor British missionary Elizabeth Jane Ross, 38 years old, a missionary doing Christian work out there in Athens. A guy called Sharif Ahmadze, he's 26-year-old, stands accused of killing her and putting her in a suitcase and dumping her in a derelict building. Now, the BBC began reporting this story by saying, yes, a 26-year-old Afghan man has been arrested, blah, blah, blah. Half an hour later, the bulletins changed to the arrested man being a 26-year-old foreign national. Why do you think the BBC suppressed his nationality?
It's just, this is what the BBC does over and over again, doesn't it? And it keeps creating problems because the audience is absolutely outraged. You know, you've clearly got the information there, and then you've half an hour later, you know, removed, you know, the cat's already out of the bag, and people probably could have guessed based on the name anyway. So it's just the BBC will pick and choose the news and edit it to suit its own political...
Its own political agenda. The BBC used to be a bastion of brilliant journalism. Now, this is true. This is tragic, but the BBC, the state broadcaster, is now where journalism goes to die, and that is a catastrophe. Rebecca, always fantastic to talk to you. Thank you very much. Rebecca Ryan there of Defund the BBC. After the 6 o'clock news, I will be joined by the Deputy Leader of Durham Council, Darren Grimes. You don't want to miss that. Stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back in a little while. I'll be joined by our royal guru over there in Los Angeles on the west coast of America, live from there, Kinsey Schofield. We're going to talk about Meghan's 45th birthday. She went doolally about it, really strange. Yeah, pictures of her jumping in the swimming pool, balloons everywhere, footage of her dancing around. Happy birthday blaring out in the background, her company as ever, the lackeys who work there wishing her a very happy birthday, congratulations. It's like, she's 45, not 5. You know, she's acting like a little excited girl. Oh, it's my birthday. Not when you're 45. Very bizarre. We will talk to Kinsey about that very soon. First off, though, let's spend the next 20, 25 minutes or so in the excellent company of the Deputy Leader of Durham Council, Darren Grimes. Hi, Darren.
Hello, Kev. Good to be with you.
Always a pleasure, mate. Now, I need to get your take on this because the rape gang scandal very much affects your area. A lot of areas in the north very much affected. Now, you will have, of course, all of us have been following closely the scourge, the scandal of the prison early release scheme. We know that until a couple of weeks ago, 6,000 dangerous men were going to be released in September next month. The Prime Minister said he would review this and eventually announced that he was going to exclude sex offenders from this. So rapists, sexual assaulters would not be allowed out, which means the total of prisoners being released in September won't be 6,000. It will now be 5,000. I mean, that's the right decision. I mean, the wrong decision, I think, is to still release those 2 scumbags who killed PC Andrew Harper. But there you have it. Now we're discovering that rape gang members are being considered for release as well. Those people who raped young women and children, underage women, are being considered for release. And the technicality is, because you would say, well, they're sex offenders. Oh, no. These people were charged with indecent assault, not sexual assault. So they'll get out. They're just playing with words. This is a disgrace, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. It is. It's semantics. You know, Kev, if Andy Burnham was to turn around and say, well, look, Kev, you know, you're getting your niggas in a twist over nothing, because actually, if they are foreign nationals, I'll deport them. I would say, well, hallelujah, happy days. But that ain't going to happen anytime soon, is it, Kev? Ultimately, no. 35 years between them, right? If you look at some of the charges here, between 5 individuals for what they did to a girl when she was 13. Now, that in itself is already an insult, right? The state of telling young girls what they are worth is 5 years between every man that ever raped them. And now we're told that they can walk away early because the offence is filed under what you rightly
indecent
describe.
Assault, not sexual
exactly.
assault.
Yeah, which is semantics. It is a loophole, a filing error, and it stands between those men and a prison gate, and quite frankly, how we value our women and girls, which the Labour Party, I think we've known for many years now, does not value our women and girls, whether that be the grooming gang scandal, or should I call it the rape gang scandal, or whether it be the trans debate as well. Every time, every twist and turn, when it comes to identity-based politics, they put women and girls last, and it's a damn disgrace.
It certainly is, and you'll be thrilled to learn that the Prime Minister has magnanimously taken a quick break from his thoroughly well-deserved fortnight's holiday. I mean, he'd done 15 hard days at the grindstone. He deserved a break, so he's gone off for a fortnight. But he has let it be known that In the case of these rape gang members who may be released, he will once again launch one of his legendary reviews. He did this a couple of weeks ago. In fairness, he did extract sex offenders, so 1,000 fewer dangerous men will be released now in September. But of course, he's stuck with the release of those awful pair that killed PC Andrew Harper, and now he's saying, well, he'll review this. Well, I don't think there's anything to review. These are rape gang members. They are responsible for raping underage girls, paedophile rape. Andy, you don't need to review this. You just need to make the common sense decision and say those toe rags stay behind bars. Am I right?
I agree. You are right. And ultimately, you know, the reason that this is all happening and we're having this conversation is because they keep saying that the prisons are full, not by, you know, some act of God, but because the Uni Party have actually, well, decided that they'd rather commission a report on rehabilitation rather than build a wing. And we've found 400 cells for people who've said something stupid on Twitter, for example, but we can't find 5 for the rape gangs that we just mentioned there. And that urgent inquiry, that urgent review, well, again, this is just going to be noise and talking in Westminster a government makes when it's being caught wanton. This isn't urgent, it's an embarrassment. That's exactly what it is, right? Time and again, I'm afraid that we're finding that the victims in this country finish last. And the perpetrators, they get a pretty sweet deal out of it, actually. When they are in prison, they're getting a nice load of trinkets that prisoners in the past certainly wouldn't have got. You know, dare I say, the Axel Rudikabana decision to put him in a hospital over than a prison, it seems that the rights of the perpetrators come before and ahead of the rights of the victims here. And that is totally wrong. We have switched the roles. We have switched what's important and what matters to us as a country, but the public haven't. The public still believe that law and order ought to mean that you endure the full term of that you have been found guilty of in a court of law. And actually, I think most of the public would say that if you're not a British national, that you should be out the door. You're not our problem.
Let me get your thoughts on something that's worrying me about this guy, Andy Burnham, and his government, his undemocratic government, because he didn't get into number 10 Downing Street by the route of democracy. He got there unhindered by democracy. Here's what's worrying me about him and his administration. We have these real crises, like the prison release scheme. And in the end, after his useless review, he said, well, there's not much I can do in the end. I'm afraid we are going to have to let PC Harper's killers out. You know, I'll stop the sex criminals, but I can't, you know, still got to let 5,000 out. Yeah, OK, fine, you know, but what is your proposal to stop this, to stop the necessity of having to keep on releasing very dangerous prisoners? Because that's what we are stuck in, a hamster wheel of constantly releasing more and more prisoners. So we'll release 5,000 in September, give it another 3 or 4 months and we'll have to release another 5,000. That's what we're stuck in. No proposal to do anything about it. You know, like build new prisons, maybe build Nightingale hospital-style prisons in 3 weeks or something. No proposal. Let's just carry on. We're stuck with this. Same deal, Darren. You'll be interested in this. I spoke to a very impressive guy called Tim McNally. He's from that village, Piddington, the village that roared, that Elon Musk has even noticed, that is fighting for its very life, really. 350 souls, 46 children, about to have foisted upon them a massive migrant camp for 1,250 foreign young men. Tim said it's the children we're worried about. This will change their lives. This will change their childhoods. And let's remember that as Piddington fights for its life, there are loads of other communities around the country doing it, like Crowborough, for example. And I said to Tim, I said, it strikes me you're at ground zero, not just in the fight for Piddington. This is the fight for Britain. This government is allowing thousands and thousands and thousands of illegal migrants to infest this country. And once again, to go back to my basic point, they just keep on letting them in. There is no proposal to stop this, just proposals, just plans to facilitate it, to accommodate it. Oh, we got more coming in. Oh, we better find another disused army camp. Oh, let's find some more HMOs. Let's find another hotel. What about a plan to stop the boats coming in the first place? It's very worrying, this kind of complacency on the part of our government.
It is, you're right. I mean, in isolation, if I take Durham as an example, because obviously I know Durham statistics like the back of my hand, but what I would say is that, you know, we have 10,000 people on a waiting list for housing, but we have 3,000 properties to go around. You can see the predicament that we're in. But the government keeps finding housing, private accommodation for illegal migrants to come in via HMOs. Again, on the government's planning agenda, the biggest amount of planning applications that we have contentious issues with is on solar farms and battery storage. Now, what if, just putting it out there, what if a few planning permission requests came in for building a prison, Kev? Why aren't we focusing on the things that we actually need instead of the things that make us feel virtuous and we can pat ourselves on our middle-class backs around London dining tables and say, aren't we good as the Labour Party? You know, I agree with your sentiment wholeheartedly. I think he is a plastic politician. I think the Labour Party are a group of parliamentary pygmies, and that fundamentally, that's why they had to go outside of their tent and hold a by-election and a Manchester election at vast cost in order to bring in Andy Burnham. And he's getting himself in exactly the same quagmire that the previous, what was his name? Keir Starmer, that was it, wasn't
That's the guy.
You know, that's him. That he found himself in, Kev. It ain't going to change.
It's not. And, you know, in effect, Burnham has organised, or it's a virtual communist coup. This guy is extremely far left, to the point of being a virtual Marxist. All this devolution is code for a communist paradise, you know, where, you know, tiny little communities govern themselves and central government takes an increasingly minor role. I find it very strange.
It won't happen. It's nonsense.
Well, yeah, but these are his plans.
I know, I agree.
And he's not interested in what we want.
He's not. Because it's about taking power away from the individual, Kev. You know, he keeps saying that devolution is about empowering the individual. It wouldn't be. It would be relegating councils like ours into a sort of makeshift parish council with a mayor on top making all the decisions. That ain't democracy, right? That's turning us into a sort of a Soviet satellite.
Yeah.
It is.
Exactly right. I mean, that's what worries me again. What worries me about this guy. You know, the nation increasingly, particularly after what we've seen in the last couple of weeks, you know, a virtual Spanish armada coming across the English Channel of these new mega boats now. And then, of course, Ceuta as well, you know, where Europe was invaded by 60,000 migrants in a single day. The migrant crisis is the primary, #1 issue that hugely concerns the people of this country. Andy Burnham palpably doesn't care about it. No. So he ignores what we want and imposes upon us what he wants, as in millions of mayors, pointless devolution, and also, of course, his massive social care system. I'm sure the social care system needs overhauling and all that, but whoever asked for this? Whoever asked Andy Burnham, when you get into power, please, could you impose on us a 1.6% levy on our incomes? Can you take that from us and set up a massive social care system that we didn't ask for? He ignores what we want and imposes on us what he wants. It's not good, Darren.
Yeah, I mean, he talks about HMO Britain, right, Kev? Do you remember when he was first elected well, he wasn't elected, but you get my point. He was nominated.
Yeah.
I guess it was a coronation as Prime Minister. And he said in his speech in Makerfield that he would be against HMO Britain, that he recognises the problem. Well, Makerfield won't be getting any more HMOs, but I tell you, the Durhams, the Thetfords of the world, we all get HMOs. Glasgow's of the world, they all get HMOs as well. And it'll just be a case of, well, we don't talk about those kinds of things because they're not in our patch, right? So the problem is still there. The problem is still happening. And you are absolutely right. It comes with absolutely no democratic consent. And that's what worries me, Kev, because I see the scenes on the streets and I think I'm deeply worried that we are entering a stage where we are likely, and I say that without any glee, to enter a state of heading towards a path for civil war, where people feel that the ballot box is fundamentally broken and that law and order no longer applies. And that's deeply troubling to me.
It certainly is. And this Burnham and his cabinet do not listen to the people. Here's the deal. Andy Burnham doesn't care about the migrant crisis, nor do his cabinet cronies. That's why they're not doing anything about it, and that's a disgrace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't care about it, right? Because they see immigration as a good thing. They see diversity, multiculturalism as an overwhelming success story. You know, they walk around London at their diverse cafes and all the rest of it, and they see it as an overwhelming good thing. Well, you tell that to the victims of the gangs that we mentioned earlier. You tell that to Rhiannon Sky White's mother, Siobhan. You tell that to the victim in Hartlepool who was stabbed when he was just going out to get some cash by a man who shouted Allahu Akbar and he was here illegally. There are so many ways, Kevin, which this is happening to us, not by us. We never voted for this. Time and again, we have voted against it. But, I keep hearing, Kev, that people say, oh, Darren, the British public has moved to the right. And I say, no. They haven't moved to the right. The British public are exactly where they were when they voted in 2019 to take back control, in 2016 to take back control. What's moved away from them is a totally out of touch and contemptible political class that sneers at them.
It's a really good point, Darren. Yeah, they're the ones who've moved left. We've stayed where we are. I've got to ask you a last question, Darren. It's always great to have this on your show. Thank you very much for joining me. But I've got to ask you this one. Kemi Badenoch, of course, your Reform UK luminary. Kemi Badenoch says that she will never form a coalition with woke Reform UK. She says Reform UK are too woke. This from the leader of the party that gave us the migrant crisis. What is your response to Kemi's accusation that you and Nigel Farage and your party are too woke?
Well, I've never heard that before, but you know what? You hear everything at least once, don't you? So that's a new one. But Kev, what I would say is that when she was Equalities Minister, she was championing the fact that Britain was a leader in the trans ideology and gender identity clinics that, of course, have been responsible for what I deem to be the mutilation of young children who would grow up to be perfectly, healthy individuals if they were allowed to go through puberty. She also championed at the start of the BLM stuff what the government was doing as far as Black Lives Matter policies, inequalities are concerned. So I'm not going to take lectures from her, to be perfectly frank, about being woke, because she was part of a government that betrayed its 2019 mandate, a mandate that people like me went out and voted for with gusto, and she now has the gall to turn around and say that the party that is winning votes from former Conservatives and former members of the Labour Party is woke. It is a nonsense. It's desperation. And I think, to be perfectly frank, it speaks to her as a politician.
I'll tell you what I think her problem is, or her central problem is this. Is she expects the British people... I'm not here to bat for any party. I'm, as you know, Darren, a scrupulously impartial presenter. But she expects the British public to basically accept this. That, you know, oh, look, I mean, yeah, sorry about the migrant crisis. Yeah, 14 years, you know, Cameron, Theresa May, Boris Johnson letting in millions and millions of legal and illegal migrants. Yeah, we're sorry about that. We got that wrong. We're sorry. But, you know, if you could just forgive us, OK, to move on. Well, it isn't, is it? I know this from my switchboard. I'll tell you what she doesn't address enough, or what I don't think she understands enough, is the level of fury and resentment that people still feel about the Tories giving us the migrant crisis. Yes, Labour have made it worse, but the Tories invented it, created it, and made it into a national crisis. It's their fault. And she doesn't address that enough.
No, she doesn't. You know, they received the Brexit freedoms to devise a migration policy that actually benefited the British nation. And instead, they devised a migration policy that benefited everyone that wants to come here for bed, board and benefits, or to take jobs that a British person could do. You know, 1 million young people out of work, they could get those jobs. But fundamentally, it's depressing wages. The Boris wave is depressing wages, and Andy Burnham shrugs his shoulders and says, oh, well, that's a shame, isn't it? Well, yes, it is a crying shame. And I find it so arrogant from both sets of the political class, both of the Uni Party, that actually they've refused to acknowledge the sheer fundamental damage that they've done to not just our country, but to faith and trust in the ballot box itself. That is so dangerous. I cannot stress that. The scenes that you've been reporting on this channel, right, that we've seen from Bedford over the last 24 hours, well, that worries me. That worries me like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
Because, quite frankly, it says something about how desperate people feel, Kev.
It's the fury, yeah. There are people who are trying to break into an asylum seeker's house. So we don't condone that. It's a terrible thing. But this is what will happen if we carry on with a government that's completely complacent about the migrant crisis and the asylum seeker crisis. If they don't care, if they palpably don't care, the people of this country are going to get more and more frustrated. As I say, we don't condone what's been going on in Thetford, but we're going to get more of it. Sure as night follows day, unless the government raises its game and starts tackling the #1 issue that concerns British people. Darren, genuinely fantastic to have you on the show. It always is. Thank you so much. The brilliant Darren Grimes, he is the Deputy Council Leader in Durham for Reform UK. Next up, it's Meghan time. We're going to talk about Meghan Markle's 45th birthday with the brilliant Kinsey Schofield, our royal guru over there in the west coast of America. So we'll talk to Kinsey next. In the meantime, though, get on the phone, because after Kinsey, we're going to be taking your calls. And I want to know what you think about grooming gang members, rape gang members, who apparently are among those who will be released in September. That's got to be stopped, hasn't it? Really interested to hear what you think about Cambridge University and the preposterous the professor who lied through his teeth, Jason Arday. Ludicrous lies. Why did Cambridge University buy into this guy's fantasy world? Absolute fantasy world. As I keep saying, I think he needs help. But it is a scandal that arguably our greatest university, certainly one of the two great universities, Oxford and Cambridge, these are arguably the most renowned universities in the world. What are Cambridge playing at? Are they self-harming here? Are they deliberately trying to destroy their reputation by taking in people, making people professors who don't deserve it because they're Walter Mitty liars? What's wrong with Cambridge University? Why did the police investigate a reporter who hit upon this story from the Times Higher Education Supplement, a guy called Jack Grove, found himself under investigation by the police. Police telling him, stop asking Jason Arday questions. He's a reporter. It's kind of his job. It's not a crime for a journalist to ask someone questions. Quite the reverse. What is going on here? Is this a police state? All of those issues, let me know what you think about them. 03444 999 1000. Let's go to break now. As I say, when we come back, Kinsey Schofield live from the west coast of America on the latest goings-on Planet Meghan. That next. You don't want to miss it. Stay where you are. Should council staff who don't follow the law be sacked? And should councillors who urge them not to lose their roles and lose the whip?
Well, I don't know. Is the answer?
What do I do?
Why don't you know? It would depend.
I know the answer to that.
On the depend on the circumstances.
No, it wouldn't.
Before I start calling for
if you urge people to break the law, you shouldn't be in public office.
I think it would depend on the manner in which that was done and the circumstances.
Well, why?
But my overall point is that they need to abide by the code.
So if they need to abide by the code and they don't, they'd be breaking the law and urging someone else to break the law.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to the host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered, Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kins.
Hey, Kev. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Always a pleasure. Now, I don't know if you noticed, she played it low-key, kept it on the down low, but this week it was Meghan Markle's 45th birthday. I'm being ironic. She made such a song and dance about it, a sickening song and dance.
Literally.
I mean, literally. I think we're going to show you the black and white picture she posted on Instagram of her leaping into the pool, carrying clutching a big bunch of balloons, and I think we've got some footage that we can just briefly play. That was the first thing. Here she is. I don't know if we've got a sound for this. We should have. Well, we should have sound, but we haven't. Anyway, there she is in the kitchen, and there's a dog. She's gyrating around yet more balloons, blasting in the background across the sound. Not in the background, blasting in the foreground across the sound system is "Happy Birthday to You," and then you hear she's gyrating around with this bizarre T-shirt on saying "Good Mrs." or something, and you hear Harry's voice off camera going, "Oh dear," but this. This is a 45-year-old woman, not a 5-year-old excited little girl. You know, 45-year-old people shouldn't get quite this worked up about their birthday. But then again, she is an epic narcissist. She loves herself on an extraordinary scale, doesn't she?
Can you imagine if because I am sick and tired of the leaks coming from Camp Sussex that they are just, you know, seconds, minutes, hours, days away from getting the half in, half out approval to into the royal fold, which, you know, you're familiar. You're seeing the same leaks that I am. Can you imagine a working royal posting something like this? Look at me, look at me. The answer is absolutely not. And I know this is probably pretty harsh, but Catherine has every reason to celebrate herself. She survived cancer. Meghan Markle survived a couple of mean tweets. You know what I mean? Like, get real, get a life. I told you that my theory on this, and I am curious to know if you agree. Every year, it seems like the headline surrounding her birthday is the royal snub.
Yeah.
The royal family ignores Meghan Markle.
Which is a breach. It was actually a breach. That is a breach of royal protocol. Protocol dictates that, you know, almost, you know, the second cousin twice removed of the royal family gets a mention in the court circular. All royal birthdays are noted. And
well, no, this is about social media. The big hubbub is, why is she not acknowledged by the royal family on social media? And the answer is because they only acknowledge working royals and their children on. So yes, you're going to see the heir to the throne, Prince George, on his birthday, but you're not going to see Meghan Markle because she's not a working royal. So all of the headlines are royal family ignores Meghan, even though people like me are saying it's not personal, it's protocol, because she's not a working royal, that they wouldn't wish her a happy birthday on Twitter or Instagram. And I think she does this ludicrous stuff to try to distract from the headlines about the royal family ignoring her, because she hates those headlines, that she needs to look royal. She needs to look like she's 3 seconds from being back into the fold. And so she tries to distract from that. And I think ultimately it makes her look pretty immature.
Yeah, it does. And do you know why the royal family don't wish her a happy birthday, Kinsey? It's because they don't wish her a happy birthday. They don't like her. When she came to Britain, here's the other story I want to discuss with you. It is now emerging that she left Britain in a rage because she felt that the royals treated her, and indeed Harry, and of course her kids, like outsiders, you know, because while we saw Harry, we didn't see her or the kids at all. They were smuggled into King Charles's country retreat, Highgrove House, almost like sort of fugitives, so we didn't see them at all. She felt snubbed by the rest of the royal family, you know, who didn't even acknowledge that she was there. So she came to Highgrove House. No one came to see her or Harry. What does she expect? Does she expect them to sort of throw open their arms with a warm embrace, great fanfare for the woman who, from across the Atlantic, called them a bunch of racists who made her life hell? It's outrageous, isn't it, that she thinks they should have made much more of a fuss of her, and she's furious that she was treated like an outsider. Well, that's because she is an outsider. Harry and her have turned themselves into royal outsiders, and they always will be, frankly. She's bizarre sometimes, isn't she?
Well, I actually haven't seen that report, so I don't know. I would have to see what the source was before I commented on something specific. But if I were to give you a general reaction to Harry and Meghan being micromanaged in any corporate environment, an employee who publicly accuses the organization of racism or wrongdoing in front of millions of people on television, or disclosed confidential internal text messages, conversations, published a tell-all memoir about their colleagues, and, you know, repeatedly monetized that intel, they would not be welcomed back into. If you worked at Walmart and you went and sat down with Oprah and talked about the racism that went on at Walmart, yeah, Walmart's not going to say, "Come on back."
Hey, exactly.
Hey,
exactly.
And that's why this institution is called the firm because they are they're the firm first, and then they're the family. And Meghan should have known that when she married into this family. And I'm sure she was told that the king and the Queen Elizabeth, God love her, they always prioritize the institution over the family. And so she needs to have realistic expectations about her behavior and what the consequences of that behavior would be in any scenario. And in a corporate environment, there would likely be a restraining order put on these two, and they would be told to stay 15 feet away at least from these individuals.
A restraining order? I think they probably do. I think the nation of Britain deserves a restraining order on that couple ever coming here again. But let's talk a little bit about Martha Stewart. Martha struggles to disguise her contempt for Meghan Markle. I'll put it that way, generously. She once before said, you know, I'm not sure about the authenticity of this woman. You know, one day pretends she's a princess and the next day says she's a domestic goddess. Does she really know what she's talking about? Well, Martha says that she was at a dinner party soon after Meghan returned from Britain. Martha was at a dinner party in California where the Duchess of Sussex was, the difficult Duchess. Martha said they spoke briefly, but she did note that Meghan was jabbering on about her British visit to see the King to other guests. But later on, after this dinner party, Martha Stewart, of course, you know, the legendary domestic goddess, you know, a home skills expert, a genuine home skills expert, beautiful cook as well. She said that Meghan Markle, she said something along the lines of Meghan Markle tries to make the transition from actress.
We found out she was talking, Meghan was at the event talking about her meeting with King Charles.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, yeah. So Martha said she didn't hear too much of that conversation, but she was obviously blathering on about it. And then Martha also went on to basically say, I'm not sure what this woman thinks she's up to, but going from actress to princess to domestic goddess is a very hard road to travel. And it's not working out for Meghan, is it? Martha Stewart's right. She's trying to be a domestic goddess and she doesn't have a clue what she's doing.
Well, speaking of the Sussex leaking, when As Ever was about to launch and when With Love Meghan was weeks from dropping, how many headlines did you count that Meghan was the second coming of Gwyneth Paltrow / Martha Stewart? And Martha Stewart hated that comparison. In my opinion, Martha Stewart did not appreciate those headlines. She did not appreciate that comparison. And she has since then been making snide remarks about Meghan's authenticity and credibility and saying, you know, I really think it's important that you have credibility in this space. Where is hers? But I think the real takeaway from this interview with People magazine, ironically one of Meghan Markle's favorite outlets, is that Martha says, I overheard her. I mean, Martha knows she's going to get Meghan in trouble. I overheard her talking about her meeting with King Charles at this dinner party. She stresses, I wasn't involved because Martha is team royal family. Remember when she posted the picture of King Charles's hot equerry when King Charles was in the United States? She spent time, she went to an event with King Charles in New York, it was, when Charles was in the United States. I mean, A-listers are choosing the working royals. A-listers have made a choice, and it's, I want to work with William and Catherine. I want to work with King Charles and Queen Camilla. Harry and Meghan are, they're toxic to the brand. We even had Kate Blanchett come out endorsing Prince William this week for his environmental work.
That wouldn't have gone down well in Montecito. I've got those quotes here from what Martha Stewart said after going to that dinner party, and she said she talked briefly to Meghan, but she went on to tell People magazine. Funnily enough, that's one of Meghan's favourite secret outlets. She puts her little gossip stories into People magazine. Anyway, Martha told People magazine, if you're an actress, it's hard then to transition to a princess, and then from a princess into a homemaking guru on a television show. It doesn't sort of follow. So go from there. Well, that is a good question, the last point that Martha makes. Where does Meghan go from here? I thought the funniest thing about her birthday celebrations, or among the funny things, was that the lackeys who have the misfortune to work for as ever, failing to sell astronomically expensive candles and jam, they were required to send her a congratulatory message for her birthday, which was the most sort of epic feat of garnering approval since Harry got Archie and Lilibet to write a letter to Meghan telling them what a great mum she is. It's amazing, this woman, isn't it?
Given how much she's emphasized her personal involvement in the social media, she shows us behind the scenes how she's taking the pictures. That's why she's, destroyed when there are literal bugs on the charcuterie board, because people know it's Meghan Markle taking the shots. That's Meghan Markle wishing herself a happy birthday. That's Meghan Markle behind the keyboard. And that's even more humiliating. But my biggest takeaway from the Martha Stewart thing is that Martha Stewart is saying that Meghan Markle's a clout chaser. She's at a high-profile dinner party in California, and Meghan Markle is having to bring up her association with King Charles to be acknowledged in that room. And that tells us everything we need to know when it was King Charles and his team that set the protocol and the boundaries for this meeting, saying, hey, we don't want this to get out. We need to reestablish trust between these two families. And if we find out that you're leaking things, it's game over. And that's really what we're seeing here, game over.
Yeah, you're quite right. Camilla, this is also apparently enraged Meghan, that Camilla insisted when they were at Highgrove House in monitoring every word that was said, in a kind of implicit warning to the gruesome twosome not to leak anything to the press. Because they've done that before, obviously. The royals just don't trust this pair. But here she is, immediately back in California, jabbering away about it at a dinner party. So once again, you can understand why King Charles and his regal clan don't trust the Sussexes. Kinsey, fantastic to have you on the show as always. Really good to talk. Thank you so much. The brilliant Kinsey Schofield there, host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. I'm going to be on her podcast again next week. Always enjoy that as well. Now, let's go to break. When we come back, it's your turn. I'll read some of your messages. I don't know if we've got any WhatsApp voice notes, but if we have, I'll play them. Also, I'm going to take phone calls. Don't forget, get on the phone, 0344 499 1000. We'll try and get you on the show. Let's talk. It's good to talk on Talk. We'll be back in a minute.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let me read a few messages. Here we go. This is from Jackie, talking about Jason Arday, the preposterous professor. Hi, Kev. This makes a laughingstock of Cambridge University. What sort of education did the pupils get here? His pupils, they're talking about. Money well spent. I think Jackie's being a little ironic there. Yeah, but don't forget this guy had students. If you listen to what he said, as somebody said, Claire Fox was making this point earlier. He did lots of interviews, a couple of them on Talk here. He came on a few years back to talk about what a dreadful racist Enid Blyton was. Of course he did. And as Claire pointed out, he knows a few long words, he just doesn't know what they mean. So he doesn't use them in the right context. You're right. What sort of education were his pupils getting? This is from Steve in East Yorkshire. He said, during World War II, we managed to build prisoner of war camps within weeks with minimal resources. So why not build similar establishments now to house low-risk, non-violent prisoners? Ready-made prefab buildings are ready, available, and could be used. That's from Steve in Yorkshire. And the point about that is you could put fairly dangerous prisoners into that kind of jail, a sort of quickly Nightingale Hospital kind of deal where you erect it very quickly. I keep making this point. Most, even very dangerous prisoners, don't want to escape. They want to complete their sentence. The idea that every jailbird is digging tunnels and desperate to get out, you know, to break out, it's just not true. It's just not true. So you don't have to build great big Colditzes, you know, with lookouts and barbed wire fences and 50-foot high walls. You just don't. You just need somewhere where they can be, because most of them don't want to break out. So the fact we're not doing anything is really weird. This is Testy from Tyneside. He said the 13-storey mega mosque. London has stringent planning permissions, particularly for building height and that affect the surrounding edifices, sunlight. How is this getting signed off? Well, I guess because it's a mosque. Hasn't been signed off yet, to be fair, but the locals fear. The locals fear. Right, let's let's take a call. Let's talk to Chris in East Sussex. Hi, Chris.
Oh, good evening, Kevin. This Arday, what a fiasco. I mean, they thought they had Walter Scott, they got Walter Mitty instead.
It's amazing, isn't it? Go on.
Unbelievable. I mean, basically, the rumour is that he solved Fermat's theorem and actually said that Fermat stole the theory from him.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, Chris, we literally do not have time to go into all of his lies. I mean, there were so many, and the more lies he told, the more ridiculous they got. You know, 35 marathons in 3 days with a broken leg, that kind of thing. Doing his PhD just after brain tumour surgery. It didn't speak until the age of 18, and so on and so forth. It's farcical, but I don't think the story is so much about him. I feel sorry for him. There's something wrong with him. He needs help. But the story is about how Cambridge University, the great Cambridge University, allowed itself to be taken in by this fantasist.
The thing is, you check references. Everything has to be referenced. And I finished my last degree in 2022, and there's a program that they use. I believe it was called Turnitin, and it picks up known patterns of speech given by the people. So unless you put things in quotes and properly reference them, you get marked down. So that everybody, whatever level, is subject to that. So how the Hades did it actually get through some of this stuff?
Well, the thing about his plagiarism, his PhD being plagiarised, he was actually sort of cleared of that, although they did say that some of the suspiciously similar text to other PhDs or other studies was within the realms of acceptable possible coincidence. But then came all the other lies, and they are not within any kind of realm. They are just bizarre. It's a story about Cambridge University, not that troubled young man. It really isn't. But Chris, good to talk to you. Thank you. Excellent call. Chris in East Sussex. We've got more calls after this break. Stay where you are. Get on the phone, though, 03444991000. Let's talk. It's good to talk on Talk.
Should council staff who don't follow the law be sacked, and should councillors who urge them not to lose their roles and lose the whip?
Well, I don't know. Is the answer?
Why don't you know?
It would depend.
I know the answer to that.
Depend on the circumstances.
No, it wouldn't.
Before I start calling for
if you urge people to break the law, you shouldn't be in public office.
I think it would depend on the manner in which that was done and the circumstances.
Well, why?
But my overall point is that they need to abide by the code.
So if they need to abide by the code and they don't, they'd be breaking the law and urging someone else to break the law.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'll go to the phones in just a sec. A couple of messages. This is from Gordon in Burnham-on-Sea, as opposed to Andy Burnham-on-Sea. Gordon in Burnham-on-Sea says, I nearly fell off my stool listening to the vertical drinkers story. Maybe they should think about the horizontal drinkers at the end of the night. It's a very good point. I've done a lot of horizontal drinking myself over the years. Ian in Newcastle says, this is an attack on hospitality, as banning drinking while standing will significantly reduce the number of people that can be accommodated in each pub and will hasten the number of pubs closing down. Extremely good point, Ian. And another caller or messenger who doesn't put their name on said, are they going to ban standing in the bars within the Houses of Parliament too then? Let's see, I don't know. Who's going to police pub drinking, says Leslie. Oh, they'll find someone. Don't worry about that. We've got a couple of calls to take from two of our best callers. The first, of course, is the legendary Georgina in London. Georgina, what do you make of the Cambridge preposterous professor story? It's extraordinary, isn't it?
Well, if it were true, he would be the original Superman. But, you know, this woke mentality is why he got the job in the first place. I mean, Kevin, intelligent people are being silenced so as not to to offend the stupid. And anyone with a brain cell knows that, you know, a man in a dress can't be a woman, that men can't have babies, and that tens of thousands of foreign men turning up on our shores is an invasion. We know that. But the government and the establishment want to change the narrative and gaslight us, you know, into the mindset.
It is gaslighting. It is gaslighting.
Normal behaviour, and it isn't. It's dangerous to pick people.
I think there's a couple of things about Jason Arday. I don't want to pick on him. I think he's a troubled young man who clearly needs help. But by sort of fast-tracking him to that position, professor in Jesus College, without really checking his preposterous lies, his litany of fantastical claims, I think patronises him. Oh, we're going to give this guy an easy ride because he's a person of colour. It patronises him and it disrespects all people of colour. They should be treated like the rest of us. Academia must be a meritocracy, nothing else.
Absolutely, and they should have done the due diligence when they took him in for the job in the first place. It is the fault of Cambridge University that this man has got the job, and he wasn't, you know, he didn't have everything needed to have the job. He obviously has got a problem. But you know what, Kevin? This woke indoctrination's happening every day, starting in our infant schools and following our children all the way up into university. And this, in my opinion, is brainwashing our children. It's dangerous, and under no circumstances should we allow it to continue.
Yeah.
It's wrong, Kevin.
This is basically woke central. This is what happens when the woke mind virus sends otherwise sensible and intelligent people absolutely mad. This is a story of insanity, of woke insanity. Georgina, another great call. Thank you so much. Have a lovely night. Sorry, apologies to Grace, who we were hoping to talk to, but Grace, sorry, we got to go. Peter Cardwell's in the studio. Give me a ring tomorrow. Peter, hi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well. What have you got lined up on your show tonight?
Well, it's a little bit more about what you're talking about as well, but also the fact that there are 6 London councils that say they're not going to obey the law when it comes to single-sex spaces, which is absurd. Huge travel trouble at Heathrow. There's been a fire on one of the runways. Manchester and Birmingham, loads of trains. We're going to get